I like the way we see financial fair play, because championship clubs agree new regulations. Championship clubs have agreed a new set of financial fair play (FFP) regulations on the 6th of November 2014 to be implemented from the start of the 2016-2017 season. Under the regulations, championship clubs' finances will be monitored over 3 seasons, during which they may lose up to £15 million without having to detail how that loss will be funded. At present, clubs must operate with losses of under $3 million a season. Clubs who fail to meet existing FFP rules face a transfer embargo. So, the existing rules: 2014-2015 losses of no more than £3 million up to £6 million with owner investment, and for 2015-2016 losses of no more than $2 million up to $13 million with owner investment. The new profitability and sustainability guidelines were agreed at the EGM in Derby on Thursday. The new rules allow for a club's losses to go beyond the £15 million cap over 3 seasons, but not exceed an aggregate of $39 million, averaging $13 million a season. Clubs who post losses of between $15 million and $39 million across 3 seasons will face additional regulation. Any club that moves between the Premier League and Championship in a 3-season period would be assessed on the permitted maximum loss per season of £35 million in the Premier League and $13 million in the Championship. A Football League statement confirming the new regulations did not directly address concerns relating to parachute payments. Among the issues raised at a meeting of the Football League and Championship clubs in April was that the Premier League parachute payments could distort competition when allied to FFP rules. Clubs relegated from the top flight will receive £60 million in payments over 4 years, a figure increased from $48 million in 2013. The statement did, however, say that the Football League Board had been given a mandate by its clubs to complete a new financial solidarity agreement with the Premier League. Now, you know what, yeah? This is an interesting one, because for FFP to work in the Football League, especially in the Championship, the Premier League has to help. They have to help instead of just doing the normal thing of thinking about themselves. Because Sean Dyche made a very interesting point on Match of the Day when he was speaking to Gary Lineker, and he was talking about the gulf just getting wider and wider and wider, and it being difficult for a club of, say, Burnley's financial power or financial standing to get the players they need in to survive with the required experience that they need in the Premier League for a budget, so in terms of a wage structure and the transfer fee, that would keep them sustainable as a club. Now, again, this is why I reckon the Premier League needs to help out as well, because the parachute payments, I think, are going to distort things. And because at the end of the day, you could have a team like, say, a QPR or a Burnley or anyone else, and bearing in mind all 3 promoted teams are actually in the relegation zone at the moment. So it's one of them ones. So the fact is, you could have all 3 of them come down, but they're going to be getting 60 million over 4 years, which they could quite easily spread into 18-ish, something like that, or even, they could spread it. No, they could spread it to 15. They could spread that to 15 million over 4 years and easily cover the Championship financial fair play rules. They could cover that, and obviously whatever other money they're making from the Championship is profit. So they could be actually pretty comfortable just based on the parachute payments alone. Whereas other clubs who, like, let's say Leeds United or Charlton, for instance, or Bournemouth or Nottingham Forest, who haven't been promoted in recent years, they wouldn't have the same luxury because they haven't got those parachute payments. So they're operating within a lot tighter financial constraints. They're basically running on the money that they've made from being in the Championship for a number of years. Well, in Leeds' case, for a number of years. But Leeds is a completely different issue at the moment after that winding up petition that they were served. So that's a different issue. But I thought I'd use them as an example, and Nottingham Forest as well, as they've been in the Championship for a while now. So they've always, well, in Forest's case, they've probably accrued a bit of money. Leeds, that's a different issue. But I think financial fair play, the rudiments of it, good idea. It's got to be applied fairly. And I think this is what the Championship are trying to do with the clubs losing 15 to 39 million across 3 seasons will face additional regulation. I think that's good. Should be sanctions rather than additional regulations because you're kind of going over the amount. But an average of £13 million losses per season is actually not too bad. I mean, I think West Brom have been operating for a few years with like losses of 10 million or under, which is not too bad. But the two key words in terms of guidelines were encapsulated in the sentence: the new profitability and sustainability. Sustainability is the important thing. That's what financial fair play is trying to get across. You need to be sustainable. Live within your means, stay within your means. But obviously that gets harder when you jump up the leagues. When you jump up into the Premier League, as QPR saw, when they got promoted, they went and splashed the cash. And, well, they would have had a £60 million fine if they hadn't have got promoted. So it was quite an odd one. So I think the Championship is trying to avoid that kind of situation happening again. But of course, with QPR getting promoted, they're not in the Championship jurisdiction anymore. Mm-hmm. This is why I reckon the Premier League has to work with the Championship to make sure that people ain't going to be able to circumvent rules and end up like Chris Jericho or like Mark Gould, the king of loopholes. So, I mean, what do you reckon of these new FFP rules?
Well, to be honest, just looking at it, I don't know, man, because I've heard your warnings, but what then comes to mind is, and I think we spoke about this like a year ago or so, in terms of yo-yo clubs that are really good at going up and down, and in terms of like a QPR, it's starting to look like fortune to them. Then if they do get relegated again, they're going to be entitled to more money when they go down. Yeah,
the parachute payments and that. Yeah.
And what I don't know. It's a hard one. I'm not financially on the Premiership ground lines, on the Championship ground lines. You know what? I haven't got an inkling to say in terms of what should really be happening. But it just, to me, these FFP rules, can't just be applied to the Championship. It has to be applied to the Premiership as well. Yeah. And I mean, like you said, on equal terms. But not just that. Also, I'm just thinking about if you have got a parachute club who then accumulates a bit of money after going up and down, and if they go to the Premiership and just think after a while, you know what, like a Burnley, we ain't investing in no one. Because take Burnley, perfect example. They're not investing in anyone. Yeah. They're more likely to go down. Mm-hmm.
Just take the parachute payments and chill in the Championship for a bit and then go back, build again and then come back up.
Seems to work in their favour in terms of it's sort of a profit. I'm not saying that's what they're doing, but I'm saying it's kind of looking that way, because if they're not actually spending that much money or creating more overheads than they did the year before, and they manage themselves tightly but go down, then obviously they'll be able to profit. Like I said, over 4 years they can cover themselves with the parachute payments. Again, if they're tight and resilient with their budgets, then it's sort of like they can make a business out of it.
But I can understand that, but then
that's just thinking outside of the box.
Because I mean, you look at West Brom when they were the boing baggies going up and down, up and down. Yeah, I mean, it's one of them where West Brom were doing that quite well in terms of jumping up, jumping down, and their parachute payments thing must have been nuts. But the Championship it's been said before. I mean, the Championship is one of the most competitive leagues in Europe, and it's one of them ones. It's not. I don't think anyone would be able to take the chance of thinking, we'll drop back and we'll come back in about a year or two. It's not a given. Yeah, but that league is not a given. I mean, Bournemouth are flying at the moment.
But
so
again, just trying to think outside the box. And I swear we've spoken about this before in terms of like 4 years of payments. You know, as a board member, if you've got a stringent board, that's 15 million each year. You know, and if you're balancing your books well with what you've got coming in from the championship, as you just said a minute ago, then that's 15 million on top of whatever you're balancing with the championship payments, what's going in and out of the club. You know, it is tidy business. I'm not saying any club wants to do it, but potentially that's how it could become for certain clubs. You know, after the second year of not going up, they could be thinking, all right, on our third, fourth year, let's try and get back up again. Let's see it happen.
They might have saved a bit of money so that they could splash out and think, yep, right, now we can make a fist.
Bag up all the players, and it, like you said, it sort of distorts things a little. But I do believe there needs to be something in place around players' contracts and wages, so clubs ain't just coming down, and we've seen it where they're coming down and then nicking other clubs' players and bringing them in. Are
you alluding to Ross McCormack by any chance, who scored a quality goal on the weekend for Fulham?
What?
Fulham got relegated, bought him from Leeds. I'm just saying that as one example.
That's one example. But
and Ross McCormack, there's a link there with PT meets Sahel Raymond as well.
One thing I'll link to is like you had Dougie Freeman at Crystal Palace. Even though Crystal Palace went up and Bolton really haven't recaptured their form since leaving the Premiership, but that was one. Dougie Freeman, to be honest, you know, he had a very, very good time at Crystal Palace. He done well to get them in a nice position, and to me, he blew it by taking that leap of faith and going to the so-called bigger club, and you know that all blew up in his face, you know. But at the end of the day,
Uwe Rosler got it right. He got it right. I mean, Friedman went the other way. It was quite weird, actually.
Yeah,
it was quite weird.
Like I said, you know, financially, it's not my area, but you know what, I'm just alluding to.
Well, you got to get your house in order, really. Yeah. I mean, I think that's the interesting thing. You got to get your house in order. I mean, Wayne Schumann, you wanted to jump in on this one?
Yeah, just sort of touching on what I said in the chat room. Like, if a few years back, like if Stevenage would have got promoted to the Championship, I think it would have ruined them financially, because they didn't have the money to meet the players' wages. It would have been awful for us if and all the fans and everything were saying, yeah, we want to go up again to the Championship. And I was thinking the first time when we got promoted to League Two that they should have stayed in there for a few years, built on, you know, buying players, saving money, and then push promotion. I think they're punching above their weight a bit when they went up, and then they went up again, and now we come back down to League Two again, and you know we're not doing, you know, they're not doing that great in League Two at the moment. If to go back down to the Conference again, I think it could ruin them, you know, bad on the financial side of things.
But for me, that's the important thing, and that's the crucial thing with financial fair play. It's living within your means and not overstretching yourself, because then when you start overstretching yourself, that's when the dam bursts and everything starts crumbling at once. Look at Portsmouth. Portsmouth are always the example.
Well, Luton done it a few years back.
Exactly, and Luton were very close to going out.
They went completely bankrupt, got kicked out of the league, and then they
minus 20 points and all that, had to start again.
They had to start again, and now they've only just sort of, you know, they got promoted last year, and now they're doing pretty well in League Two this season. But it's only been the last couple of years they sort of got their finances sorted out and, you know, sort of pushed on from that. But I fear that's what's going to happen to Stevenage if we do go down. But not only that, I mean, it's like the fan base is pretty poor as well. You know, even in League One, it was like the first year I was going to watch them, it was averaging like 3,000 at home in League One, and we're playing against teams like Coventry, Sheffield United. You know, these are ex-Premier League teams, and they were still averaging 20,000 at home.
Yeah.
And it's a massive difference.
Oh, of course, but I mean, the Coventry one was quite a weird one because of all the issues that they were having with the guys who owned the lease on the Ricoh Arena, and they've only just sorted that out this past summer. I mean, they had a lot of issues, but again,
Yeah.
they were. I think the kind of rudiments of that. From what I remember, it was a case of they had a ground and they were essentially struggling to meet the payments. So, hey, if you struggle to meet the payments, you end up getting kicked out of a place, and they didn't have a home for a while.
No, I mean, it's the same with us. Mike remembers a couple of years ago when we did go up to League Two, there was talk about extending Broadhall Way, making it bigger, but they couldn't because there was a school one side, the woods behind it, and blah, blah, blah. Then there was talk about building a 30,000 all-seater stadium in Nebworth, which is just a bit far out of Stevenage, about sort of 5 minutes out of Stevenage as you hit the motorway. And there was a lot of complaints about it, but I was thinking, like, 30,000 when we average 3.5 foot at home every week. How would we be able to afford to keep that stadium going?
No, exactly.
You know, and if we did get relegated again, that would affect the finance on the stadium and everything, and then we'd have to, get rid of that stadium. We wouldn't have a ground. We wouldn't have a home.
See, it's one of them ones. I mean, I said it's one of them, but it's keeping things sustainable is the important thing. And like you look at the thing with West Ham and the Olympic Stadium. It's a case of there's no point having 20,000 fans rattling around a 60,000 all-seater stadium. In the same way you've just mentioned with Stevenage, there's no point having 3,000 fans rattling around a 20,000 all-seater stadium. There really is no point.
We was averaging 3.5. I think our biggest attendance in the conference was the year we won the league was like 5,500, and that was only against Barnet. That was like a local derby. So, and that was only because they brought down like 2,500 fans, and they pretty much sold out the away end. So I think to build a 30,000 all-seater stadium, I just think it was a ridiculous idea. And they still even talk about it now. They're still saying, oh yeah, we'd love a new stadium, blah, blah, but what's the point when we don't even sell out the ground that we got?
Yeah, see, again, it's sustainability, and that's the issue here. So that, for me personally, that's why I'm glad these FFP rules have been agreed on with the championship and the football league in general. But it is a case of, I said, the Premier League needs to jump in on it as well. But the sad thing is the Premier League just can't agree on it. They've tried. They've tried in part. I think it was like a year ago, where they had a vote, but they just couldn't get majority. They couldn't get majority, so it's not being brought in. But it is an odd one, because as like I said, coming back to what Sean Dyche said on Match of the Day, it was a case of with Dyche saying that gap is getting bigger and bigger, and it's difficult when you jump up a league to be able to essentially be able to sustain what you've got and thrive as well, whilst you've got a minuscule budget. And it takes time to grow a budget. Just like with Pitch Talk, we've been doing this 4.5 years now. We've actually been doing this 4.5 years, and we're still growing it. So it's one of them. And of course, with all of the Skypers' help, the Facebookers, the tweeters, Facebookers, the tweeters, the Skypers, everybody, we obviously still need a lot of help in growing it. But at the end of the day, it takes time to grow any entity. It takes time. So that's where we're going. But you know what? I said it is one of them ones, man. This is going to be. I mean, Mike Harneman, you wanted to jump in before we move on?
Yeah, just about what Wayne said, really. I do really remember that quite clear about what's happened with Stevenage, and where we're sort of so close to like the Arsenals, the Chelseas, the Tottenhams, the West Hams, and so on. To have a 30,000 all-seater stadium is just ridiculous to even think about that, because if we're in the Championship, to be competing with even the likes of Watford, we'd have to put a hell of a lot into that. And it's like the fans, a lot of them have their second team. They have Arsenal, they have Tottenham, they have whoever it is. So they won't basically want to go down to Stevenage every week. They want to they're kind of not die-hard fans, if you know what I mean. They won't go every week. So some weeks it could be basically 5 to 10,000 in the stadium. Other weeks, depending on who you've got, it could be like 2 or 3. And you can't have that when it's the championship. You have to have a steady sort of fan base.
No, definitely. I mean, at the end of the day, I said it is. The important thing is sustainability, but at the same time, you've got to be realistic. I think realism is one of the words that I've kind of missed so far. You do have to be realistic, and I say growing anything takes time, and it might be best staying where you're at in terms of leagues, staying where you're at, building up, then making sure you're sustainable, then trying to have a real good push. Like look at Arsenal as the example. It's one of them, was that constant stream of fourth, that constant Champions League money coming in, paying off a self-paying debt with the Emirates Stadium. You might have cash reserves sitting on, but it doesn't mean you need to blow it. It doesn't mean you need to be blowing 50, 60, 70, 80 million at one time. That's not sustainable to do all the time. Chelsea have got a load of debt behind them. Apart from a couple of exceptional seasons where they're earning 60 million. Apart from that, they're not earning anywhere near as much as that. Real Madrid have posted recent debts of 600 million. So but the saving grace is the fact that they're earning more. They're earning a hell of a lot. Like Man United, we discussed a couple of weeks ago about the Premier League having the biggest trade deficit in football, and Man United sit right at the top of that pile. But they're actually earning more than they're hemorrhaging. But at the same time, it's not sustainable for life. At some point, you're gonna have to chip away at that debt. So why not chip away at the debt first? Keep yourselves in black ink on a general basis. Then once you've got enough reserves piled up, then you start trying to make a bit more of a push, because you've got a bit more financial leeway.